Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just sorting out my paperwork because I have to be able to read my notes.
Notes.
Probably don't have your thing set up for.
I need notes.
Let's see. For some reason, it's showing you.
Oh, I see Clayton.
There I am.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new Judge's Corner. Um, so the last Judge's Corner, I kind of talked more about kind of judging issues, I think, more than anything else, where usually I'm defending the judges, kind of talking about what I see or what I perceive maybe the judges are thinking about when images are scoring that appears not to be, you know, happy or a happy area for the people that are entering. So, but last month I kind of changed it a little bit. I picked out a couple problem categories I think that I felt I was seeing within the group. And then this time I kind of did the same thing a little bit. Now I have two, well, actually, let me share my screen. I'm going to do a kind of a little bit of a PowerPoint and go through a couple things, and then I'll go back to the old way where I just put a couple images in. I think at the end, depending on time, I'm going to put a couple images into Photoshop, and we'll kind of talk about those a little bit. So let me share screen, share entire screen. Nope, I'm going to start here. Okay. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So last Judge's Corner, I had an image that I actually judged, and I think I scored it rather low. It was a picture of Valley of Fire. I had complained it was taken at a bad time of day, saying that the sun was too low. So one side was all black, and then the other side just had really hot highlights, very contrasty. Contrast is good in some situations, not so good in other situations. This is an image from another member that hasn't been in competition yet, but I wanted to talk about the difference, and I'm not going to show them side to side because I'm not trying to pinpoint or say anybody did anything wrong or somebody's better than somebody else. The point is when the judges are looking at something, they're going to judge it on how they feel. You know, the last one was a little bit too contrasty. It was in black and white. I felt it was the wrong time of day, which is what my comment was, because I know this road faces south and all the light was coming from the left side of the image where everything on the left side in the canyon was black and everything on the other side was really hot, and that was kind of a distraction for me to judge it, so it did get a lower score. But I found this image from another member because I wanted to talk about its time of day is a lot better in what I see or what I recognize in being a better image because you can see through the valley. There's definition in the rocks, and it has a lot more. It has probably the same amount of contrast as the last one. The contrast is just done in a different way via the lighting. Now, I happen to know this was done right when the sun went down. So the sun is down off to the right side of the image, but you're just getting kind of the glow from the sky, which is lighting it. Um, I do want to mention that I think the other image was in documentary. This image is obviously it's been, oversaturated a little bit, so it couldn't go into that documentary category. But to me, I should say, it's much more pleasing for this area with this particular lighting. Anybody have any comments or questions about this image or the last one? Okay, we're going to move on. From this month's competition, um, I have a couple images that we're going to talk about, and this is not to put down the image or put down the maker. It's more, I'm going to complain a little bit more about the judging. Now, if you were a judge and I'm not going to point anybody out, but if you were one of the judges, you don't have to say anything because again, you know, all of us as judges, uh, see things at different. We see it in different ways. We have different likes, or we're biased to different things, whether it's the light or quality of the image or the subject matter. It's how we are, and so I don't put that down. Whereas I know some competitions would. They say you can't be biased. I don't like cats, so cats never score good with me. It's not that type of thing. I'm always trying to look for the best image in every image that is presented. I did bring up it was 2 months ago, right? Because last month was print. Well, the past one was electronic, but 2 months ago for electronic, I did talk about there being some new judges, and I felt the competitions were outstanding. Lots of great comments from new people on the judging board, which I think is great. I think we also have to be able to judge things and not be scared of what we're judging. Because I do feel that some of us, and I think I feel the same way sometimes, I think some of us are scared to judge or scared to comment or scared to give a lower score. And that's mostly what I mean by judging. Um, commenting is hard. I don't always have something great to say about an image, even though I'm trying to think in my head, what can I say that's good? I got to say something good about this before I can beat it up with one of my lousy comments. I did want to say, we had 92 images in last competition, and we scored. I thought I had the percentages. I didn't print the percentages. I had percentages, but it was pretty high where, we had seven perfect images out of 92. So that's almost 10%, which is really high. And do I think it shouldn't be that high? No, not necessarily, because I know we have some amazing photographers in this club, and that's the whole point of doing all these things, is to make everybody better. I just think that sometimes we just get stuck in an area, and that area being that 7, 8, 9 area when we have a bigger range. Um, and I just want the judges to think about it a little bit more when they're judging. I'm not saying go in there and you got to beat everything up. I'm just saying be a little more conscious about what you're judging, you know, what category you're in, what our rules are for that category, and what our responsibilities as a judge to help everyone. Because if we just give everybody blue ribbons and everybody gets every award, there's almost kind of no point to do it. And I've said it before, so I don't mean to be, harping on the same issues, but sometimes I didn't know somebody had a question.
Somebody on a phone
Somebody's,
just got.
somebody's TV. Okay. So, well, with that, can everybody hear me over that? Or okay. So let me move this out of the way.
Whoever has telephone ending in 2593, please mute.
Close those. Okay, so we had an image in Nature Wildlife, and again, I don't want the maker to feel, that I'm picking on them, because I'm not. I'm using their image to help educate judging. The next two images we do are to help educate judging. And again, I'm not picking on the judges. I'm just we haven't done judging class in a while or presentation, so this is kind of a little aspect of that. Um, so nature wildlife, this is the rules or our classifications for nature wildlife. And one of the main things it says in there is human elements shall not be present. This image here came up, and I believe this was in a intermediate, but reading those rules and that specific part of the rule, which says human elements should not be present, this got 2 9s. So I think maybe the judges aren't reading it or just forgot, or hey, it's really cute. Maybe they didn't understand the category. But I think technically and you don't have to judge it bad. If you're, again, I know some of us are scared to give a 6, because this is a good image. It's just in the wrong category, so it doesn't fit the category. So kind of being a nature wildlife, it really should be kicked out or gotten a lower score, way lower than 9s. But again, I don't want anyone to feel bad about it, because being the judge, you can be the judge that says, hey, this doesn't fit the category. Can we move it to animals, pets, or can we move it down to unclassified? Because even in monthly, we don't see that a lot, but we do see it a lot in outside competitions, because some of the judging is a little bit more strict on outside competitions, because we don't always know who we're getting, but we're getting somebody from, either the photo lab or from the library who runs the gallery, who's more strict in what they want to hang in there. And that's kind of one thing I wanted you guys to think about is judging. If you're judging this competition and this wins and gets hung out in the library, we're advertising that this is Nevada Camera Club's best of the best of nature wildlife. And when it doesn't really fit our category in nature wildlife, and it definitely doesn't fit any categories in most of the other competitions I've judged with PSA or other organizations. Does anybody have any comments?
Good catch.
Okay. This also says for nature wildlife, the storytelling value of a photograph must be weighed more than the pictorial quality, meaning when we're doing nature wildlife, we want more of a story. So I know this kind of goes back to the animal pets thing, because I was complaining back a while for a few years about animals, pets having wildlife in there when it technically really shouldn't fit the category. But I think we've redone that now, and it does. So now that we have animals, pets, that gives you a wider range of what you can enter in there, then this one should be a little bit more of a stricter category on those grounds as well. Okay, the next one. Oh, well, let's do NCC competition categories. So many photographs fit in more than one category, and it's up to the photographer to choose in which category she wishes to compete. So again, yes, that's why I can't tell you how many meetings I've done on just competition entries or competition categories, trying to help everybody. But that's how Nevada Camera Club structured our competition, to give you options, to give you more free will, and not to have everybody entering into one competition so it's all kind of mushed together. And there's more opportunity for blue ribbons, there's more opportunity for higher scores, there's more opportunity for learning, basically, because you can learn. Whereas you're going to have 4 or 5 images that win in one category of, say, called color, now you have all these other categories and there's going to be more discussion about them. So that's what I mean by that. Okay. Uh, the two that I grabbed most of the images from was the creative advanced, and then also the photojournalism advanced. So creative, work in which the normal photographic processes have been exaggerated or manipulated by the chemistry or other means of the purpose of creating special effects that are not achieved in the normal photographic process. Example is filters, backgrounds, background replacements, overlays, AI generative fill, which we have now just added to allow that. A photographer may use any elements available to them as long as they photograph the main subject. So we've opened creative up a lot, but we'll go through the images that I picked out here in a little bit, but I didn't feel there was a lot of creativity that was put in those images, and that's why we're talking about that. Also, photojournalism depicts a photographic story of an event and its impact, including but not limited to hard news, sports, features, personalities, and human interest. So I think some of the stories were good. Um, some of the images were excellent, but again, the journalistic value of the photograph shall be weighed more than the pictorial quality. So I think the images that won last month were pretty on. I think the judges did a really good job with how they scored them. Um, well, I just read through that. The journalistic value of the photograph shall be weighed more. So photojournalism says this, and nature wildlife says this, which is really only two categories that specifically say that, the story should be more than the pictorial quality. Everything else is really about the pictorial quality. Okay. Um, we're gonna we're gonna get back to those two uh, groups of images, the creative, the photojournalism. But I wanted to go one more step. The NCC competition classes, for most of us, are beginner, intermediate, advanced, and master. Um, a master classified member shall be defined as a photographer whose skill level of the craft has placed that person above the level of advanced class. The reason I'm talking about this is because we do have some beginners and intermediates, and we all score them higher. And I think that's great. We should. That's that's going to help them learn and and help them get better to an extent. But we also need to be careful because if you just slap blue ribbons on everything, then some people just don't learn because they're going to keep doing the same mistakes. So there has to be a little bit of give and take when you're judging or when you're, giving out the ribbons. You got to pay attention to that. The reason I'm talking about master so much is I know there's some people that want to enter master because less people are entering. And I don't have a problem with that, especially if you're doing, all the processing yourself, the images, the printing, the matting, the mounting, all that, et cetera, et cetera. And that's fine. But you have to understand you are going to be judged tougher than the advanced because you're supposed to be better than the advanced when you're entering this class. Um, this came up. I didn't judge it. And again, this is not about the person that entered. This is more about the judging because here's another image that got a blue ribbon. Now, my kind of, you know, sassy comment is you guys as Nevada Camera Club, do you want to hang images that look like this and say, hey, I'm part of Nevada Camera Club? Or do you want things that are done a little bit better? Because this is what I saw on my screen. Now, I did talk to a couple of people that said they didn't see that. So what I'm talking about on this image is the white kind of lines at the top and the side that are showing up. So, I think this scored I think it scored 3 8s. It might have got 2 8s and a 9. And again, that's beside the point. My problem or my complaint is that this got a blue ribbon in the master category. And I don't think that's a good thing. And that's kind of why I'm talking about this a little bit. I think we just need to, you know, uh, clean house a little bit and be a little more strict in what we're looking at, what we're talking about. Work with each other to make everything better and to help people so that this doesn't happen when they're entering competition. This is kind of the same thing I believe that I heard of a lot of chatter about at the hanging at the courthouse with pictures falling down left and right this year. And this is kind of the same thing. It's it's a mistake that happens, but we have to teach the people that are doing it to, make it a little bit better. So that's what this discussion is about. Um, one of the comments was that this image was leaning and also tilted back. Um, I talked to a couple people before I put all this stuff together, and someone was talking about documentary. So I think this one is documentary, right? This is documentary master. So can you adjust, that cantilever in documentary because it says to record without embellishment? Yes, you can. The reason is you can go out and buy a, $3,000 tilt shift lens, and this would photograph from the same spot straight up and down, or you can do it in Photoshop because that is not altering the truth of the image. Technically, this would be altering the truth of the image because the church doesn't lean like this. It's more straight. This also does kind of lean off to the side. So even though it looks like you were standing in the middle, I think the camera was tilted a little bit at the same rate. So this is the things that the judges should notice, especially being in a master category. Does anybody want to comment before I go on?
So Jerome, you're saying that if someone in Photoshop went in and did a transform to straighten out the walls, because of course this was done with the wide angle lens, which tends to distort photos like that, that would be okay, because you're not altering the view of the structure of the cathedral. I mean, the overall surroundings of the cathedral. So that should be okay to do.
Correct.
Okay, good. Okay.
So and also dodging and burning is not a problem. So I'm gonna pop out of here for a minute because I want to go somewhere else real quick. So right here,
So this looks like it's
this is the image that was presented. Actually, I'm sorry, I cropped it. So the one that was on there, I just cropped it so the lines were out of the top and the bottom. Can everybody see that? Let me move it if I can.
Yeah.
Got something in the way.
A quick comment.
Yes.
The YouTube version didn't show the white lines at the top and the side.
Okay. Yeah, and I said that earlier. I said so maybe when I mean I saw it on mine, but maybe when some other people were judging, they weren't seeing it on their computer either. So again, I understand that, and I understand that could have happened. Anyway, so back to this. This is the main image. Where's my? And this is just a quick straighten. It's not perfect. I did it real fast, and I'll do it again with a couple other images tonight if we have time. But I mean, this was quick and fast. So at least the back is a little straighter. It's kind of a little bit more centered. And then also I want to go one more step because, this is just a burn in the background, and it really makes the bricks and the windows pop out a little bit more. So this is all things that you would do in a normal dark room.
Every day.
Say it again. I'm sorry. So this is all the things you would have done in the wet days. This is things that photographers do for the newspaper. So that's when you're documenting things, as long as you do the normal processes, it's okay to do that. Anybody have any? I heard a couple things. I just didn't know if somebody was talking to me or not. Okay.
I will say one thing, Jerome.
Yes.
Because I provided you with the images, I noticed when I looked at the image on my computer the first time, the background in back of it was of a lighter color, and then the white didn't show up on it. So as we are editing things, I think we need to be very careful about our background and try to remember and take a look at it on a dark background, which is what it would be coming to us when we are seeing it through the Zoom call, or if we were projecting it, we would probably also see it with a darker background.
Right, through competition, generally speaking.
So I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
That's okay.
And that is that this is a prime example of taking the electric competition and have it shown in one place. That way, all judges are seeing the same photo without all these other distractions to the photos. So that's all I have to say about that. But I think this is a prime example of what's going on in regards to electronic competition.
Yes, I agree. Okay, I closed too many windows, so I lost my. Okay, so let's go to advanced creative. So I think having there's a difference between having a creative eye and entering an image into the creative category. Because I think everybody's looking for the image to be creative from a not so I hate to say the word Photoshop creativity because there's other ways to do it, and I didn't bring, examples of that. But I mean, technically, this one is creative because it's been manipulated. In just my opinion, I don't think this is fitting the category because a creative viewpoint doesn't necessarily make the image creative under the category description. Same thing with this. And I know I judged this category and I commented on this one. I think this is an outstanding image. I just don't think when I'm reading the rules of the competition, it's saying manipulated with filters and lights and whatever it says. I don't feel like this has been done that. I feel like this is a great image of, the Milky Way and the figures in the front, the Last Supper, and I think it's been handled very well. I just think it wasn't in that creative aspect for me from what I'm reading in the rules. And again, this goes back to everybody that judges is going to have a different opinion. So other judges may think this is very creative in that respect. Actually, this one here, I know got a 27. And although I don't think, again, here, let's say, I don't think this has been, manipulated in the way the rules are reading, but this here is a creative vision. And I think this just came across a lot better, to all the judges that were judging at that particular time. And this got that perfect score. This one here fits the category, but I think the judges all had a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out what's going on. The maker of this is not here, but I did get, oh, Linda, hopefully I brought it. I thought I had it on that email. I don't think I brought it. Linda, do you have that email?
Yes, Yes, I do. Give me a minute and I'll find it.
Okay, and then I'm going to let Linda read the email because the maker sent an email how she made it. While she's looking for that, I do want to say that also creativity, you're not going to get judged on how hard it is to do an image. So I know the maker put a lot into this image. This is all done in camera with multiple exposures and I think a little bit of zooming effect. Um, I just wanted Linda to read the email. That way I don't leave anything out.
And what the description is it was a multiple exposure with ICM and also using zooming in on one exposure. Created all in camera, no compositing in Photoshop.
So I think that's amazing. And and I think she did a great job. The problem is I don't think that came across to the judges as they're judging. So kind of a little bit, a lot of effort, a great image, maybe just not a good competition image because the judges didn't understand it. And that's all. That's, I'm not talking bad about any of these images because I think there's a lot of creative thought that went into them. A lot, some of them have some good planning, some of them, a good view. Just in that creative category, I don't think it was a strong category this time. And that's kind of why I talked about it a little bit. But I'm open for anything anybody has to say about the creative category and any of these image. I can go back and show an image if somebody had a question or comment.
So Jerome, would you have thought that this image may have go into unclassified?
Well, unclassified is just an open, it can be anything. I mean, even because you do see its flowers, you can kind of see the trees in the background. Obviously, whoever the judges were along with me, we all kind of didn't understand it a little bit, and maybe unclassified would have done better because we're not trying to put that creative description in our mind when we're trying to judge it. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, and that's why sometimes when I tell people, this would probably be better in a different category, and that's really the reason. If the judges are, on point with certain categories, or I'm probably more strict on certain categories that I deal with a lot more, and other judges are probably strict on opposite categories that I'm not dealing with as much, but they deal with more. So because we have descriptions, if they're reading the descriptions, then they're obviously going to try and judge it towards that element or those elements that should be in there. So, and again, this is a great image. I think it didn't get across to the judges, how it was. There's I know there's a couple people that do some underwater stuff, and I've done underwater photography, and it's hard as hell. I mean, to be floating and try and take a picture and stuff swimming around you and then oh yeah, remember to breathe once in a while because you're on an air tank. It's very difficult, but the people that enter them, not everybody, but a lot of the people that are entering images like that, they get upset because they think, well, do you know how hard this is? Yeah, I do, but it's still not a good image in my in my mind what I'm looking at. So that's kind of the give and take. Okay, so the other one was photojournalism. So anybody have anything else before I close those out? Okay, let's go to photojournalism. Again, this was an advanced group. Sports is always great. I know, I believe this got a couple of nines, and I think I gave it an eight. And my issue with it was the background was very distracting. And I know sometimes you're kind of like, man, I'm at this event and great capture with her, great capture with the ball. You want the ball in there. She's flying. I love the face. Um, maybe, and again, I wasn't there. I don't know if it could have been any different, but maybe if you were two steps over to the left and at least the building was just all white in the background, maybe that would have been better. Just because in the background, what I'm seeing is I'm trying to look at the ball, but I see the flag, I see the palm trees, and so that's kind of why I went with the eight. And I just wanted to explain that. I'm going to jump around before we discuss it anymore. This is another one that I talked about, and where this one is, so cluttery, it actually has a pattern. The pattern that brings it all together is trying to read all the signs. It keeps you involved, it keeps you going. Now, this has a great story in my mind. This, however, is probably a better picture, not as good a story. You know, there's it's very hard. I shot AVP pro volleyball for AVP for like 2 years. So sometimes you get good shots like this, but they don't tell the story that AVP is looking for or that the news is looking for, unless it was just about this girl. And for me as a judge, I don't know who the girl is, so it's not really speaking to me the same it is to the maker. But great image, great capture. I want to go one more because all three of these came up at the same time. Now, again, great image, sports. Um, I think this has a lot more story value than the AVP Pro Volleyball because it's just the girl hitting the ball. And she might be the number one player right now, but I don't know. This guy here that's laying on the ground, again, as a judge, I don't know who he is, but oh my God, you have more feeling, you have more emotion for this as, maybe he's getting stepped on by the bull. I think he's just doing a face plant, but you feel more of that. Even this guy up here, this is, I think, the best guy in this whole crowd is this guy here covering his mouth. So I think story wise, sometimes because I entered a lot of AVP pictures too when I was shooting that back then, and it would get beat out by something like this, which is, it's almost like bad timing to enter it at that time, but at the same time, it still probably got as good as it's going to get. And that's where in photojournalism, you're looking for a story. Great pictures. All three of these are great pictures. But, really, again, for me, the strongest story out of those three is this one right here. Would anybody like to talk about any of these or comment? I'm gonna do this last one real quick.
The volleyball one would probably do better in people.
It could. It could. Because when I look at people images, I want to see more of action, where in portraiture, not always so much action. You want the person to be involved, and that is a good comment. One more, and I commented on this one as well. Um, I think this is a great picture. It has impact because of the red and the blue and the old style truck. I do feel that the wagons in the background kind of take away from it. But overall, my hardest comment or critique was that I don't have a story. There's no story here for me because I really can't tell where it's at, although I can see it's, you know, possibly not the US, but I don't really have the story that the other images give me as a story. This might have done a little bit better just in a documentary or an unclassified, just being kind of the pretty picture type of thing or recording without embellishment type of thing. We have two more. So, um, sometimes titles can backfire on you, especially if the judges know what's going on. If we go back to Valley of Fire, I drive out to Valley of Fire at least 2 or 3 times a month. So I'm there all the time. I'll drive around and sit there. I'll drive around, try and find sheep. I drive around, try and see what the lightings look like or the clouds, and I shoot the same things over and over again. Um, so yeah, I was a little bit hard on the Valley of Fire picture. Same thing can happen, in sports or, other areas that the judges might be kind of looking at. So this looks to me like the guy is going this way because his feet are coming off and back while he's holding on. So it looks like he did a slam dunk and then he's kind of flying off that way because his hair and everything's going back. And again, I can be wrong. I'm not always right, but that was the only thing that kind of took me down because I think it's a great image. Again, story wise, it tells its own story. Sports are usually pretty either this is it or it's not there. When you got the ball and you got some action on the faces, that's what makes all the sports photojournalism images great. Stories are hard to intertwine much past either yay or nay. And and this was behind the board dunk. So maybe he came around and jumped up there to dunk it, but I would think his feet and stuff would be flying the other way. So even though it looks like it, just because I'm again, being involved in sports, playing sports, shooting sports, that kind of took away from me. Now, I'm not saying I scored it down for that. I'm just saying sometimes we've got to be careful of the titles we're putting in there because, and I do it too. I put a dumb title in there once in a while and somebody will talk about it. But we have to, if you're more worried about what your scores are, or what you're getting, you got to be careful about some of the titles because I think, just being a slam dunk is enough. You get the whole point. Rebels win, something like that. Something simple where you don't have to make the judge think about what that title's trying to explain. And that kind of goes back to the truck. I know the truck with the blue and red truck was um, titled Havana Movers. So, and again, like I said, I wouldn't have known that unless there was a title. But just as you want to be careful with your title so it doesn't hurt you, you also don't want to rely on your title to get you, that 8 or 9 score or that blue ribbon. So, because remember, a lot of times we do, outside competitions, some of the judges don't even want the titles. Either whether it's a time thing or that they're used to judging other competitions where they don't have titles or names or anything. They just look at what's in the category and they pick out what fits the category, what's the best image, on down the lines. Okay. Anybody want to say anything before I go to the last image in photojournalism? Okay, let's look at this one real quick. Um, again, I scored all these the whole category. So um, this got a 26. I don't have the scores in front of me, so I don't remember what I scored this. I remember talking about this being an outstanding image. The way the people are arranged, this guy in the front with his bag open setting up, the arch in the background. It also kind of hit home with me because I just done that national parks program for the club where I was complaining about how many people are at, all the national parks. So I did have a little feeling that I think this is over sharpened a little bit. The over processed, I guess, a little bit. I don't think the over processing, whether it's, over sharpened or just added contrast, I don't think it takes away from it. So in that respect, I didn't think that it hurt the scores of the image. Um, but I just wanted to talk about that whole group of images. Anybody like to say anything or talk about anything? Any comments on photojournalism overall? Okay. I want to go to, what's my last group? My last group is pictorial. So pictorial is in the master division. And I just picked these because I wanted to talk about some of the comments as far as uh, judging. One of the comments on this image was, it'd be great if it had a little more Oh, I got my guides on. Hey, Steven, are you on there? How do I shut the guides off? I can't even get to my.
Well, that's just because you're in the crop tool. Is that where you want to be?
Yeah, but let me see.
And then it's right over here, rulers and guides. In the panel there on the right.
There we go. Oop. Well, that's not what I wanted. Oh, I see. There we go. Okay, I want to get that off there. Um, okay, so what I wanted to do was just simple stuff. So, and I thought about doing this because of the comments. So again, this is pictorial. So pictorial, you could do a little bit more. So one of the judge's comments was to add a little more contrast. So I kind of wanted to do a couple things with what the judges were talking about, which this is just contrast. And I wanted to see what you guys thought. Good comment from the judge. Does
I
anybody
like
think
what it looks like, and it's my image. But what bothers me is I seem to get a halo then on the mountain.
you think this here is the halo?
Yep.
It
Not a deep one, but a little one.
yeah, I'm if it's causing I do see it a little bit right here. If it's causing that halo, I don't think it's too much. And I'm going a little bit over. I'm doing 50, so I'm going way over. You could probably bring it down a little bit. And you can also, when you do these things here, you have this mask that's in there. So let's go back to 50. Come on. Not close enough. So if I click on the mask and oh no. How come it's not there it is. If I invert the mask, I can, oh man. Oh, I don't want to restart my computer, so I've been doing too much and I didn't restart before this program. So now you can't see the circle around it's pretty small. Let's
That's
make
a small circle.
300. Okay, so let's do this. So now I'm not going to touch the mountain. I'm only going to touch the sky. How about that?
The only problem I see with that, when you add that kind of contrast, is you tend to bleed the colors. And so you get some luminosity problems with,
Right.
with the purples and the greens and then you'll introduce some pinks and things like that. So then the northern lights tends to fade when you do too much contrast. I like the way it was, and then just do the contrast in the mountain is what I would have done. because because you can see the stars and everything, and when you add contrast, it tends to overpower all of that prettiness of the northern lights.
So let's go back and we'll just do the mountainous zone. The floor? No, the floor. So this is just the mountain. And this is just the sky. And I'm over exaggerating. I want you guys to know that. Like I said, I'm doing 50 and I'm doing, 100% opacity. So you can do it a lot lower levels to get where you want to be. And hey, what I said earlier, judges aren't always right. I'm not always right. Okay, so let me.
Do we know, was that shot with a polarizer?
I don't know if the maker's on here, if they want to answer.
It was not.
I wonder if that would have helped with some of the glow or not the glow, but the haze that it seemed like it had.
I don't know enough about Northern Lights, so I really can't comment too much on that. I've gone out to shoot it several times and it just hasn't been there. I showed up and it didn't.
The only thing I can say is the gentlemen who were leading our tour for it, I don't remember a polarizer mentioned as being one of the tools that they suggested that we use. And they came up with some really incredible images that I'm very jealous of.
Fair enough. Well, I know nothing about it either, so I just wasn't sure.
All right, what am I? I've been touching so many buttons today, I've got everything out of whack. So I believe this image, one of the judges was talking about making it more of a streamline, getting rid of some of the grass in the front. And don't anybody feel that this is how it has to be. So I'm just trying to relay what's in the judges' minds on some of their comments, and it either makes it better, and it doesn't necessarily always make it better.
So I know this is my image. And the
Okay.
reason why I included the flower at the bottom was to give some kind of a center point to start the eye to move into the frame. And I mean, that was my intention of doing that. But the judges did say that they felt that it should have been cropped with less grass in it. So, I understand that it's all subjective, but that was my intention, was using the center flower to give a judges a starting point to then look beyond that.
And I think both points of views are very valid.
But I'm okay with this too. I mean, I can see their point of view in
Yeah.
regards to that. So yeah, and actually, at first I thought about cropping it like this. And then I thought, no, I really like that center flower to just start me off and then get me through the frame.
I like this better only because
Oh.
my mind really runs on composition, and I think this has a stronger composition.
And also the other thing was, and I agree with you in regards to the rule of thirds, having that horizon line further down. And I understood that. And
Yeah.
so I was just trying to break the rules, that's all.
And you got to do that once in a while. I agree 100%. Okay, so there was okay, I didn't do the other one, but we'll do this one. I keep opening it like that instead of like this. So now this is in pictorial. So obviously you could fix this in pictorial, but I'm going to do this so everybody can see the layer on the bottom, depending on how far it goes. And again, there's other ways to do this really easy. I'm doing it just kind of fast. That look pretty straight to everybody. This one's shot with such a wide angle lens. Let's go back to this one. I gotta start over. Okay, so this was the starting. And this one was in documentary anyway, so and again, I'm doing this fast. There's many programs that can do this a little bit better. And if I was actually really going to do this, I would spend more time on it. So I look pretty straight. And I'm still off a little bit, I think.
I'll get them out in the morning.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
No, I was telling my daughter I'd get the trash cans out in the morning
Oh,
tomorrow.
gotcha. Hey, there's my brush. 100% is too much on this. 38. So this is the entry. straightening it up. Dodging and burning wasn't one of the comments. I added that on my own. Now I got the grids on here.
And this is documentary?
This is documentary. So everything I did is okay in documentary because I'm not embellishing the truth. You know, the camera doesn't see exactly what our eyes see. It doesn't adjust to the same light that we have. So by just darkening part of it, you know, the same thing with skies. You see skies with whether you put a filter on, you know, lens or a polarizer or something else is also darkening the sky. Or if you're shooting black and white, what a lot of news photographers used to do is put, you know, a red filter on there to darken the sky or the cloud, lighten the clouds. Cool. Any comments? Any questions? I think I covered everything and I got it done in an hour.
Good job, Jerome.
So that's all I have today, guys. Thank you, everybody. What did we end up with? Because I still, oh, maybe I can see now.
16.
16? Okay, cool. All right. Hey,
Let's do it here.
Thanks, Jerome.
thank
Thanks.
you, guys.
Well,
Thanks,
have a good
Jerome.
evening.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, Jerome.
Thank you, Jerome.